Okay. Welcome to Hickory Street Podcast. We are here with Evan Fee, a friend of mine that I've that I've had for 2 years now.
Yeah, something like that.
Of superhero, supervillain, and I guess my dog likes him. That's a good sign.
Yeah, he's a good boy.
If you haven't listened before, my dog's name is Tyson. He's half pit bull, half boxer, and
An all good boy.
he's getting acclimated to people.
Yeah. He gave me a little growl when I walked up today. He's like, "Whoa." I was like, "Oh, we could be friends." And he was like, "Okay." I always talk to dogs. Yeah, he's a good boy. He's been following you all around, Mike. And now all of a sudden, when we started, he decided to get down and he's like, "Oh, I want some pets." He's being my friend. So.
Yeah, he came to you this time. He follows me around the apartment all the time. Just never really leaves me alone. Go ahead and talk a little bit about what you guys are doing with Superhero Supervillain now.
Sure thing, man. So with things going on the way they are, it's been a little bit difficult to get together with the guys and practice. And I personally have made the decision to not play any shows live until there's a vaccine for the disease. So realistically, won't be playing any shows until next year. But in the interim, decided to work on some new material that I had written the previous 2.5-3 years, and it's turning into an EP of songs, and it's going to be called the Fall Guy EP, and we're shooting for a release this fall, and it's going to be a mixture of hard rock, really poppy stuff, some funk of all things, and then some really, really heavy, screamy stuff. So kind of a wide range of material that Supervillain does, and recording the drums next weekend, and it's going to be fun, man.
Nice. Well, I'm excited to hear it. It really sucks with everything going on. I mean, I was actually just telling someone earlier the other day, I was like, man, as a musician, not being able to do what you do, or like go see your friends do what they do, like it kind of kills your soul a little bit right now.
Yeah, man, it's definitely not been easy for anybody. I miss friends. I miss going to shows, miss playing shows, but I miss friends. I miss hanging out with my dudes. That sucks, but
Yeah.
and Zooming with friends is fun. Texting, chatting or whatever. That's cool, but I miss hanging out with my buddies. But it is what it is. I guess I've just been trying to focus on being positive and creating, just still being creative in my own way. I've also recorded this album's pretty much finished. I have a whole full-length album of for MC Square Root as well. That's my hip-hop alter ego. And
Oh yeah.
I released one on March 14th this year, called The Uncommon Denominator.
I really liked that.
Yeah, March 14th is Pi Day, so I thought that was appropriate. That album took about 5 years to make, but this album I pretty much had it written, except for the opening track, which I wrote at the beginning of this whole pandemic. But the whole album was pretty much written, and then once everything happened in quarantine, I just decided to start recording it, and it's predominant. Other than like 2 beats, I had Richie Flo make all the beats for me on that one.
Oh, I know him.
Yeah,
he's a cool guy.
And then there's it's all hip hop. Majority of it, with the exception of two songs, the majority of it are counting songs that are pretty short in nature, but they're geared towards elementary school students about learning their times tables. So like there's counting by 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, and then all the way up to 10s. And the 10 song is actually like going to be a punk rock song that I recorded guitar and bass on, and had my buddy Jared Gideon. He plays in a band called the Faps. I had him program.
Oh, I've heard of them.
Song. Yeah.
Cool.
And then there's a song about circles and a song about fractions, but yeah, that album was pretty much done. I don't know when I'm going to release it since I just put out that other record. And I guess should be promoting it. I'm supposed to be going on tour next week, but that got canceled. So.
Oh man, for MC Square?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. MC Square was that was going to be starting on the 19th and going to like the 27th. Like I was doing like Dublin, Texas, but then I was also like that was the only Texas gig I was doing. I was doing Oklahoma City, Tulsa, 2 places in Colorado. I was going to Illinois. I was going to Cincinnati and Wichita, Kansas. Like all over, like crisscrossing the Midwest pretty much. So it sucks that all happened. That I had to cancel it all, but I'll be honest. Like part of me is almost a little relieved that it happened because the way that. Like I was excited to do the tour. Don't get me wrong, and like seeing all these places I've never seen before. But part of me was almost a little relieved because it was like 14-hour drives one way and then a 16-hour drive the other way. So like,
yeah, that's a lot of driving. Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is. I'm shooting for next summer. I honestly think, hopefully, like with, okay. So, real talk. Can I talk about like what's going on?
Yeah, go for it.
So
that's fine.
We all know about like COVID-19, right? And we know the scientists are saying it usually takes years for a vaccine to be developed. However, if you ask any medical researcher, this is like the number one priority. So there's vaccines being prelim tested now, the multiple ones, like not even in just U.S., like all around the globe. So realistically, hopefully there'll be a viable vaccine that's widely available come next year. So that's kind of what I'm shooting for in terms of playing live, and also going to shows. Guys, I'm sorry if you're playing shows, I'm not going to go. I apologize. However, I will say this, and several artistic friends can testify to this. If you have anything that you like, any albums or merchandise that you are selling and you're willing to ship, contact me. Like I will gladly pay. And I spent just this week alone, I don't know, $150 on merchandise from friends that shipped to me. So like you too, Michael. If you have anything to sell, I'll buy. I prefer to pay through Facebook Messenger. So if you're cool with that and you'll ship, hit me up, guys. Evan Fee, that's my name. That's me. But unfortunately, like if you're gonna be playing shows, more power to you. But I'm not gonna be going.
Yeah, and that's the thing right now. I think that it's important for people to just do whatever makes them feel comfortable right now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no clear wrong or right way to approach this right now. I think that it's very subjective still, and everything, like, we don't know a whole lot of it, so it's best to just be as safe as possible. Like, if you can limit the amount of people you're hanging out with, or the amount of people that you are around, that would be best. you know?
Exactly. I mean, it is what it is. But in the interim, I hope everybody else is staying safe and writing music and creating art. And if you're protesting, please be safe as well.
Oh, yeah, that's going on too, yeah.
That said, so I haven't... Can I talk about that? Is that okay?
Go for it. That's fine.
I have not been participating in the protests, but I fully support the people that are, and I've been trying to put my money where my mouth is, so to speak, and there's a few different charities, nonprofit organizations that I've been donating to, as well as just seeing people that I know that have been protesting and sending money to them as well. So if you don't feel comfortable protesting, whether it be for you're immunocompromised, which is one of the things for me, or whatever, and you have the financial means, I recommend donating to a worthy cause if you can. So that's my 2 cents. And because systemic racism is real, and it is something I really think that we should hopefully end and change. And if you're not registered to vote, please register to vote, because we all should vote as well. Yay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's well, yeah, kind of just going off of what you were just talking about. I think that just being an American is somewhat of a complicated title, and it's there's a lot of conflicting things throughout our history that we have to acknowledge now, and um, as unfortunate as it is that these sort of things are still happening in society that are causing protests to still be necessary in today's times. I think that um, we also need to be mindful of how unsafe it is as well to be a part of a protest, not only for the COVID-19 reasons, but also just because violence can ensue, and some people aren't necessarily prepared for that whenever they go and protest, and some are, and it's just I think it's regardless of whether or not you're prepared for it, you need to at least be thinking about it, because it can happen. And I've had friends say that they would go out and protest, and they have gone out and protested. And I personally will not go, just purely because of the safety aspect. I don't want to be caught in a situation where I tend to have bad luck with these things. I find myself in like these weird situations where violence is happening, and it's not something I'm seeking out. I'm just like caught in a situation where it's present in whatever environment I'm in, and so I just don't want to take any risk right now by going out. But if you do decide to go out, if you're listening to this and you are going to participate wear a mask, and also just be prepared to have some sort of exit plan if things get violent and you're not prepared for it.
Yeah.
So.
And there's some good nonprofits. Black Lives Matter. That's a good nonprofit that I've donated to. There's I'm pulling up on my phone right now. It's called. Hopefully you'll edit my stalling. Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. It's fine.
OrganizeTexas.org. They're a nonprofit organization. That's OrganizeTexas.org. That's one I've donated to.
I think that OrganizeTexas.org, they have several advocacies that run through them, which is kind of cool, because it's sort of a cyclical thing. Like, there's many different organizations tied to that blanket organization.
They help fund bailing out of protesters who've been arrested, and that's something I personally think is a good thing. And if you know anyone that is protesting that could use supplies, such as water, masks, and unfortunately milk, because unfortunately there has been tear gas being used, and it's pretty gross, and it's terrible on people's eyes. That's what they're using milk for. If you have any funds that you can donate, that's what I've done. Is I contacted someone out of the blue I'm friends with on Facebook, and I said, hey, I don't have any supplies, but here's some money. Hopefully that can help, and it did. And I did that again for another friend who was protesting in Seattle.
I can tell this stuff is weighing heavy on you.
It sure is, man. It's something that, as being part of society, and then just being, I'm also a teacher, and just learning about, I'm a math teacher, but I firmly believe that all the subjects are important, including especially science and English, especially history. And I'm not going to brag, but I will say that I do have the trust of a lot of my students that I teach. And so periodically at school, they'll come up to me, when we had school in person, they would come up to me and, complain about their classes. And one of the complaints that I actually liked hearing, because I always had the same answer, was when they complained about their history classes. And they said, why do we have to know this? And that's the reason I always like hearing that complaint, is because my answer was always the same, is so we don't repeat it. And there's been a lot of things that I've seen in our current political climate and our society that are definitely repeating themselves. And it's important to read up on that stuff, guys, and stay in school and pay attention to that.
I'm kind of glad you mentioned that, because my degree is actually in history, and one of the main things that I've found studying history is just the fact that history, in a sense, repeats itself, partly because the human condition is somewhat constant. The same issues that exist today throughout different societies and governments are the same issues that existed in societies and governments thousands of years ago. Partly, and it primarily just has to do with the fact that whenever there's any sort of structure to a society where there's a division between the powerful and the not so powerful, people get taken advantage of, and the issue of slavery was not a new phenomenon by the time it reached the United States, but that doesn't mean that now, at this point in time, we shouldn't address the effects of it in our society either. And what's sort of interesting, just kind of along the history lines, is that from the standpoint that our country is really only about 300 years old, we've made a lot of progressive changes in societies, in our society, that didn't happen for centuries in other societies.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy that women have been able to vote for just barely 100 years now. Like, think about that, man. Like, if you went back in time, like 105 years ago, women didn't have the right to vote. So, I mean, it's...
And it was really only 1960s that we got civil rights for, for African Americans in this country.
Yeah.
So, and that's that's a very recent thing, and I think that there's a lot of voices out there that are voicing and pointing out the societal structures that are in place that are disproportionately favoring one viewpoint over another purely based off of race, and those sort of things are shifting in society, which is definitely a positive, and those people are getting a vehicle for their voice through the mainstream media in ways that, or in even non-mainstream media, in regards to like social media, but they're getting they're getting their voices heard in ways that are more profound than they ever were in history. So I'm positive. I have a positive outlook on things that are happening right now, and I think that other people definitely should, because there's not only more voices that are being that are available to be heard, but more people are listening, and that's something that we need to sort of focus on, and that's partly why these sort of things are not necessarily weighing me down so heavy right now, just because I understand that there's injustices that happen throughout the world, and um, but the great thing about the way that this country is structured is our legislative process and the um, power of public media on putting pressure on elected officials to enact changes that the public wants. And I think that change is coming. I really do. I'm very positive about that.
I hope that the events that have been occurring, I hope that it's leaning towards a teachable moment for people. In that, so yeah, I mean, I have a college degree. I'm a school teacher. Blah blah blah. I'm good at math. Okay, but that doesn't mean that I'm above learning things. Even I honestly try to learn new things every day, and that includes my viewpoints. And I've always thought of myself having kind of a progressive viewpoint in leaning towards a particular ideology, but and I'm not saying one way that you should vote one way or the other. If you vote, I mean honestly, if you vote, that's awesome. If I'm not gonna on this particular platform, I'm not gonna say that, but I will say that a lot of this I have looked at society, but also looked towards myself and seeing what I can do to really reflecting and see what I can do to be better towards society as well as and ultimately towards myself. And I hope that the messages that have been conveyed during this movement are not said onto deaf ears.
No, yeah, I understand what you're saying, and to kind of just to piggyback off of what you were just saying, I think that people need to be weary of being affiliated too much with one political party in general, just because there's a spectrum that of political beliefs that I feel like some people are just kind of attaching on to as their identity as a human being. And unfortunately, whenever you really get down deep into what an ideology is and associating yourself too strongly with one particular ideology, it can consume you to the point where you aren't open-minded anymore to hear new information. And something that our first president warned against in his farewell address in the early 1800s after his 2 terms were up was that being associated with political parties would ultimately become the demise of our democracy. And I think that quite literally is sort of what's happening right now. People are fed up on both sides, and people are fed up with the options on both sides. And we haven't had a moment of clarity in this country yet, and I think that people just have to do a lot of individual reflection and at least notice some of the things within themselves that are not necessarily who they are, but are the ideas that they've attached themselves to that have sort of become them. And kind of just talking about historical context, the Nazi movement, it was a socialist movement that was created in liberal circles to take down the democratic structure that existed in Germany at the time, post World War I. And so there's not, just because something is, modernly progressive does not necessarily mean that all the aspects of it are considered progress. In the same way that not everything that's considered you know, economically or philosophically conservative are anti-progress either. And there's a spectrum that I think people just have to notice within themselves, and that's really hard to do right now because we're living in a society where economic disparity is the highest it's ever been, and people's tensions are understandably high, but we need to find a way to connect with one another because we're people before, we were people before governments existed. And that's something that I try to keep in the back of my mind. And so, if you're a person out there struggling with this, hopefully just find it within yourself to just, put a lot of that, in some sense, away for a moment so you can be present with the people that are around you and learn from them and be open to at least learning more. And I think that that's the most important thing for everybody to do right now is just be open, hear other people, and try to learn as much as you can, like you were talking about.
Yeah. And don't be an asshole. Can I say that? I'm sorry. Be nice. Yeah.
Or at least as nice as you can be. Everybody. I got off of social media for that reason. Is that text. You can't. 90% of communication is nonverbal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, text is purely verbal communication. You can't take into account tone. You can't take into account context a lot of the time, and that makes it very difficult for a lot of people to relate to each other. And I think that we live. With the nature of social media and just text in general, there's so much miscommunication that happens that I feel like could be worked out so easily face to face, but unfortunately, people just have a lot of anxiety whenever it comes to facing conflict right now, and
also it's difficult to have a face-to-face conversation with someone these days too to cope because of the pandemic.
Yeah,
so
but there's that
too. So once again, I miss my friends.
I think we all miss our friends right now. Well, getting back to music. I know that there's not a whole lot to talk about because we can't do shows, but just kind of give a brief overview of how Superhero Supervillain started and when you decided to do MC Square Root, and then I guess we'll kind of wrap this episode up.
Okay, so Superhero Supervillain, started that project way back in 2009 with my good friend Chia Hamill. She was the drummer, and I played guitar and sang, and we started off as a two-piece, and I was living in Austin, and they were living in Fort Worth, basically, and we played like that for about 2 years. Then I moved up to Dallas in 2011, added a bass player, Matt McCulley, and even from the start, it was kind of a yin and yang kind of feel of the band, where some of it was heavy and some of it was poppy. There's always kind of that dichotomy. Really, it was based on, ultimately it comes down to I just kind of get sick of playing the same kind of genre over and over again. So, but I like heavy music and I like poppy music, and honestly I think when you kind of have that ebb and flow in the music, it makes your heavier stuff sound heavier and your poppier stuff sound even poppier. Then we added Ziggy Leha as second guitar in 2012, and Chia left the band in 2014 right after we recorded our second full length, and we added Zach Haygood. He was playing with a band called Human Groove Hormone at the time, and we played a couple shows with them, so he kind of knew all about our stuff and liked it.
I didn't realize he came from that band.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I
then
never saw him live, but I heard the name
yeah,
like
yeah.
way back when. So
And he joined the band, and he's been with us ever since. We put out a third full length in 2016 called A Few Months of Mute, and then our fourth full length came out in 2018 called Approaching the Horizon. We put out a single last year called Emergency, and now we're working on this new EP.
Tyson.
We've done a couple. We did a tour in 2018 over a couple states and played tons of shows in Denton and Dallas and Houston, Austin, all over the place, man. And still doing it, man. Like it's kind of, that band is definitely my baby. It's just I always wanted, like even before I started Superhero Supervillain, I wanted to actually have a project called Superhero Supervillain for like three or 5 years, something like that, beforehand. And I've been in bands for over 20 years, and I just have always wanted to kind of have like a band that was like my version of Faith No More, which is my favorite band, where it's just kind of like
Everything.
metal, pop, funk, whatever, like just whatever suits the song, man. Like I don't like to say we're this kind of band. Like I like to say we're a band that does what is right for the song, honestly.
It's cool that they're your influence. I didn't know that just because, you don't necessarily sound anything like Faith No More.
Yeah.
But I definitely see now what you're talking about as far as like
Yeah,
the conceptual side of how you approach the music.
In particular, I mean, I like all their stuff, but in particular, there's an album called King for a Day, Fool for a Lifetime, and from start to finish, that album's fantastic. And there's like some really, really heavy stuff, and then there's just poppy and this funk, and there's just all over the place. But it's masterful. Like, and to this day, it's one of my biggest influences as a musician. And then I guess I was leading towards my other music project that I'm currently doing, MC Square Root. I went to school. I went to UNT. I did radio, television, film, and then I did that for like 2.5 years. And then I transferred to a school in Savannah, Georgia called Savannah College of Art and Design, and studied sound design, and that's where I got my degree in. And but when I was at UNT, I was a math tutor. I worked for the UNT Learning Center, and I loved it. It was one of the most rewarding jobs I've ever had. And through the years, I always kind of thought, being a math teacher would be kind of cool. Like if this, audio engineering doesn't work out, and I worked at some recording studios from time to time, but never in anything like that was enough to pay the bills. Like I always had to work retail jobs or food jobs for 10 plus years. And then finally one day I decided I wanted to go back to school and become a math teacher. And in the state of Texas, to teach anything, you just have to have a bachelor's degree and then enough credits in whatever subject you want to teach. So I went to community college and took some more math classes, and then got alternate certified. And I started teaching in 2015, and teaching math and then also being a special education teacher, which I kind of fell into, honestly. It was something that the schools that hired me, they didn't really want to hire me as a math teacher, but they needed a sped teacher. So I was like, okay, I'll get certified, and kind of fell into it. But my first year teaching, and any teacher, their first year teaching will tell you this, it's hell. It's like you're surviving. That's basically it. And if you can make it through your first year teaching, you're good. And it was like the first semester was awful. I had just the worst anxiety. I was sleeping 8 hours a week, basically. Like I couldn't sleep. Like all I could think about was like, I'm gonna quote South Park when Cartman starts teaching, how do I reach these kids? like basically that's basically what I was like. How do I reach these kids, man? Like, so one day I was driving to work, and I started thinking about linear functions, and I thought, going left to right. We call it the X. The independent input leads to success. Going up and down. We call it the Y. The dependent output needs the X to fly. What? And so my conference period was like the very beginning of that day. So that morning I just took out a notepad, wrote down what I had, and I thought up some other lyrics to go with it. And on my computer, my work computer, I pulled up GarageBand and made a beat. I was like, I'm gonna do it. And I did this. One of my classes I had it was these pretty rowdy kids, and I just hooked up my computer to the speakers that we have in the room, and I just did it. And I didn't even have it memorized. Like I didn't have my raps memorized for quite some time, and I just had my paper in my hand. And the kids loved it. They thought it was awesome. And so I started writing some more just for my kids, and that was cool. I had like 5 by the end of my first year teaching, and recorded those. And that summer, like I recorded them and put them out, and then kind of did it like over the next couple of years, and slowly started writing new material. And about 2.5 years in of teaching, I decided to start performing live and did some open mic nights here and there. And I definitely stumbled and had some terrible performances, but kind of stuck with it. And then last couple years, like last 2 or 3 years, I really kind of hunkered down and started focusing on it, and had enough songs for a record. And I approached Keldrick from Gitmo Records last fall and asked him if he'd be interested in working with me, and he was like, yeah, absolutely. And he helped me put together this record, and we released it. And then I just recently put 2 songs. Gitmo put out a compilation last month called Declassified. That's on Spotify as well, and I have a couple songs on that. My 2 songs, along with like maybe 2 other ones, are like the only ones that don't have curse words in them. But those 2 songs will also be on my next full length as well. But yeah, Gitmo Declassified is the name of that comp. And then yeah, man, it's a thing now.
Cool.
Honestly, it was just something I started off doing just to engage my students, because
I kind of figured as much by just the way that the songs were done.
Yeah, man, like I listened to some hip hop growing up.
But I mean, it's fun. Like I'm kind of a nerd,
yeah,
like,
man, like
geek. So I was like, this is funny.
I
like
like Dr. Dre. I like Snoop. I like Public Enemy, and that first Wu-Tang album was great. But like, I'm not really big into listening to too much hip hop. I did like that new Run the Jewels album. That was great. But I've always been kind of a rock guy, and rock metal. That's the most of the music I listen to, punk rock. But when I started teaching, you see kids walking around with their earbuds in, and you can hear what they're listening to just because you can hear like the
yeah.
It's the trap beat, man, and everyone's listening. Like 95% of the students I teach, and I teach a diverse ethnic, racial group of kids. Like I teach, you name it. Like that's one of the things I like about the school I teach is it's very diverse, but they're all listening to hip hop, all of them. And so I realized, if something I can do to get my kids' attention, at least for a little bit. And one of the things that I'm working with students is it's building. It's not just helping them understand the curriculum. You have to sell yourself. Like you have to earn their trust. And that was one of the ways I learned to earn my students' trust. And if you have their trust, if you build that relationship as a teacher, then you got them. Like if you want to, because man, being a math teacher, it's like trying to sell a ketchup popsicle to someone wearing white gloves. Like they don't want to buy it. Like the majority of students, they don't want to do math. I get it, man. That's one of the reasons I teach math is because I didn't like doing math growing up either. I struggled with it, and so by learning, making up hip hop songs and performing it for my students, I helped hook them in, man. Like I help win their trust. But then I kind of realized this is kind of fun, and unlike being in a band, I don't have like my band is bringing a USB stick to a show. Like that's the band. You know, just plug in your computer, cool. Instead of having to set up, a whole bunch of amps and drum set. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I miss doing that too. But like the logistics of doing hip hop, oh my gosh, it's so much easier in that respect. But I also gained a lot of respect for being able to do it because I'm not like people that can just flow off the top of their head. Man, more power to you, man. Like that's not me. Like I have to meticulously write out my lyrics. I handwrite all my stuff and then practice. Like it's a very slow process for me to write and learn music for MC Square Root. Whereas like for Superhero, like the majority of that stuff is very seldom do I actually write down the lyrics. Sometimes I do, but
yeah,
most of that stuff is just sitting down with the guitar and just
flushing out the melody first.
Sometimes I'll be driving my car and be like my song Suzanne, like that's one of our most popular songs. That song was written, that's pretty interesting. I went to a school function for my kid with her mom and stepdad, and we were going out to eat at IHOP afterwards, and my kid's mom's dad was there as well. But they're all family to me. Like even though the marriage didn't work out, but like the friendship and the family still lives on. So because we're adults, we were talking about her. So my daughter's grandfather, I guess, was talking about one of his ex-girlfriends whose name was Suzanne, and he said, "Hot damn Suzanne," but it wasn't hot damn. It was the other one. It starts with God. I don't know if you wanted me to keep it clean, so I'm still keeping it clean. And I was like, that'd be a good hook. And so like I was driving home that night, and I was like, hot damn Suzanne, you don't seem to understand. And I just literally had the hook in my head by the time I got home, and that was it. Like you're a songwriter. Like sometimes it takes me 2 years to write a song, and then sometimes you write a song in 5 minutes. Like that was a song I wrote in 5 minutes. Like it's like, oh, wow, that song's already done.
It's nice whenever that happens.
Yeah, right. I wish I could write all of them like that, but unfortunately, that's not the way it goes. Yeah, like it just depends on the song. Like just with the MC Square Root stuff, man. Like most of that stuff, like sometimes I'll think of a hook, but like most of that stuff I have to like sit down, have a computer open with Wikipedia and Rhyme Zone, and sometimes a textbook open just to kind of take it from there. Like it just, but it's all about the song, really. It just depends.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. I'm really glad you came out here and did this and got a chance to kind of talk to you a little bit about those things. I've been keeping up with your music for a while now, so this was fun. Thanks for being on it, and we'll see you guys next time. If you want to be on the podcast, if you're a local musician or artist, filmmaker, anything like that, just shoot me a message or an email at Hickory Street Podcast. It's hickorystpodcast@gmail.com. I don't have a Facebook page or any other sort of social media for this. I'm just doing YouTube. So just shoot me an email, and then we can schedule it. So yeah, thanks for coming on, Evan.